Test, test, test. And then
Cool.
audio output capture, screen flick loop back. But we should just put that on and off. We switch it out. V2. What? What?
Your aggregate's not there?
Yeah, where's my aggregate? What is it? No, it was MIDI
MIDI audio.
audio MIDI.
Audio MIDI.
Dang, dude, this is... How do I do this? What does it show?
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. This looks very different from what I'm used to.
What? It's just gone? It just does that? Test, 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 test. Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, y'all. We're still figuring this out.
He my fave you work with. Who's he?
Test, test. Test, test. Whatever. We're doing no sound then. We're doing no background music. I'm not gonna mess with this. We're doing no background music. I can't figure it out.
Am I the favorite? Aw. I can't be the favorite. I'm the worst.
It's alright. We can't figure out the background music.
You can listen to the sounds of the ASMR voice of Lou and his heavy breathing.
Are you reading that somewhere?
No, I'm just voicing that.
Oh, got it. All right. So
I think that'd be a really weird thing to find somewhere to read.
yeah, we have a lot of old episodes. Holy cow! I didn't realize we had so many episodes. Okay, so we did like giving
Well,
feedback.
Minimum once a week
what
for
is
3 years.
mixing? So you want to be a mixing engineer? How to get started? Studio gear. What you should buy? The systems and websites. Mix with the masters. Compression EQ. What to buy? Networking. Failure and fear. What is mastering? Charging money. How to charge your clients.
Actually, networking is a good one.
Yeah, vocal chain. How to process pop vocals. Excuse me. How to deal with crappy clients.
I'm glad to say I haven't really had any crappy clients in a while.
I need to listen to some of these old episodes. This is interesting.
I like how there was a flood warning for coming to LA.
There was?
Yeah, as soon as I turned on my navigation, it's like, warning, there's flash flood warnings in Los Angeles. I'm like,
Whoa, what happened all of a sudden? Starting and ending mixes strong. What else were we saying? We were saying something like, fuck. Let's just do this.
I like the James icon.
Yeah.
It looks cool. It looks like something out of the 80s, but they're like fun.
Mixing misconceptions, how to make money from music, mix breakdown. Oh, we played Flawless. I forgot about that. We need to do more mix breakdowns. That's something we could do, but I'd have to figure out how we actually incorporate it. Being efficient in the studio, signal flow, gain staging.
We can talk about honestly setting up for success as the year is coming in. Because right now I'm starting to get back to like being busier again.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of something like really practical, like within the realms of compression technique, some sort of like EQ technique. Fuck your excuses, believe in yourself. That probably was a good episode. I need to re-listen to that episode. Yeah, there was moments where I got really intense in the old days.
And now you're so melodramatic.
This is still, I'm like, not in Utah. Or, I mean, this is still, I'm in Utah, I think.
July 2020? Yeah, because we opened the studio August 1st officially. We got keys to the studio end of July, like last week of July.
It's about this time that, like, retrospect is a bitch. That's funny. That is funny. Announcements. DK had another baby. Learning how to record with Sean, Raw Tech. Yeah, the truth about home studios. We were talking about what were we saying? There's a topic that I really, really wanted to touch on. Yeah, we could talk about live instruments recording.
Yeah.
Recording live instruments. We've done a few episodes on like horns, strings, drums.
We can talk about I guess the use of different types of solutions for different problems while recording from home. Like that's literally something I'm helping with my client Danny.
Like how do you mean?
He does a lot of label work. Like that's almost all he does, but all of his label recording sessions are at his house with like 7-foot 8-inch ceilings and stuff like that. Like super non-ideal location. But like part of the solutions me and him have been working on is like getting his recording quality up in an unideal space.
So specifically acoustic problems making an unideal space more ideal. I like that.
Yeah. Like, for instance, you want big, boomy drums, maybe put it in the livest part of that room. You know, if you
Interesting.
want tighter drums, maybe don't worry about like having the world's greatest acoustics. Sometimes you just need some nice heavy curtains and throw them on
Okay,
T-shaped mic stands.
that's a good idea. Hold on.
Yeah,
Let's do that then. That's fine. Let's commit to that.
yeah. One thing he asked me about the other day, he's like, "Do you think we need to add diffusion?" I'm like, "I don't think you have the space capable of actually, warranting
Test.
diffusion."
All right, let's record. I'm going to record here. Record here too. Test. Okay. Give me a moment. Nickname. Oh, yeah. Hello and welcome back to the Mixing Music Podcast. I'm your host, DK, and with me, as always, is my lovely co-host, Loud Loof Slew.
Oh, I like it. It's true.
Suggested by one of our listeners. Anyway, thank you so much for listening to the Mixing Music Podcast. And if you are subscribed to the exclusive content, you're amazing. You're amazing.
Thank you
and
for
we
that.
might name you by name, but I don't have the list pulled up right now. But we're excited about this episode. This is a good one. Pretty practical episode. Lou right now is just finished or almost done building out your new setup because you moved to Orange County.
Yep. Yeah. So I say we, but in reality, I only had help for like 4 hours on one day. But it took about 5 days total from buying the materials, shipping everything around, and then fully treating out the space. But even then, there's still more I want to do. Working from home isn't always going to be the easiest thing to combat.
Yeah, and so you have a space now, you have a house, and in the house you have a room dedicated to the studio stuff,
Yep.
and you rebuilt all the acoustic treatment customized for your space.
Mhm.
You had a fireplace which was not centered, which we talked about, we laughed about. It
Oh
was like
yeah.
off by a couple inches or something
Oh,
like
and
that.
just wait till I tell you the latest update. Oh, it's gonna be one of those like, ba-doom, boom.
What?
Yeah.
It was just off, so you covered it. That's
It's covered and everything looks great. But yesterday I was very focused on just getting the clouds up and everything, and I let Henry and David do all the measurements for the placement of the clouds and everything, and they got them into the right depths and field and everything. But when I stood in the back of the room, I noticed that the back cloud was 2 inches to the right. The chimney was 2 inches to the left. So I ended up with something still off center somehow. And now I'm like, you know what? I'll wait 3 months. I'll let my body just get used to seeing that. And if it still bothers me in 3 months, I'll recenter the clouds. Because the whole issue with the chimney is that it was not centered. And now the cloud's not centered. The last piece of the puzzle is the one part that did not get centered right.
That's all right, but the clouds are permanently installed, right? So
Yeah.
it'd be a bitch and a half just to move it.
I'm pretty handy.
All right, well,
Yeah.
cool. But anyway, so today's episode is about how to make a less than ideal recording space more ideal. Specifically, this is going to be for like home studios. If you're working from home and you have set boundaries, like you have a set ceiling height, that is of a residential
Yeah.
residential ceiling height, and you got square rooms or things of that nature. How do we go about fixing these things to make sound ideal? How do we use the space to make different instruments and different recordings sound great? As well, we're going to talk about recording spaces, and then we're going to talk about mixing spaces as well. And Lou is more of a acoustician than I am, but I think that it's fair to say that neither of us are full on.
Yeah, neither one of us
acousticians.
went to school specifically to become a
Like we don't
acousticians.
have a master's degree or graduate degree in acoustics, but we have built, especially Lou more than me, have built many recording studios, and we understand the basic concept of what sounds good. And we both have the experience to know when a room sounds good. We may not
Yeah.
know exactly why, but we can say, yes, this sounds good, and these rooms don't sound good. So couple things that we should talk about is, first, let's just go straight into what do you want to talk about? Do you want to talk about ceilings first, or do you want to go into absorption first? What direction?
Let's just talk about practicality, like just general recording, because a lot of people that usually
let's
work
start
from home sometimes have the battle of either I can't record too loud or I have to record within a certain time frame because my neighbors.
Let's talk about soundproofing versus acoustic treatment.
Yeah,
which
that's usually the
briefly,
first battle that everybody has.
most people listening may
Yeah.
already know the difference, but let's talk about it briefly. Like in 30 seconds, what's the difference between sound treatment and
Sound treatment,
soundproofing?
you're treating the inside of the space to sound a specific type of way. Soundproofing is you trying to avoid any exterior sounds from coming in and any interior sounds from coming out.
Simple as that.
Yeah. It's
So if you don't
two
want to
very
bother
different
your
things.
neighbors, that's soundproofing. If you want to make the room sound good for recording or for mixing, that's sound treatment.
Yeah, and a space that is good for recording and a space that is good for mixing are also two different types of treatments.
Yes. Well, briefly, generalizing, what do you think between those two?
Mixing in a home studio typically has like a 3 to 5 decibel range within a flat response. So, like you can have peaks and dips within a 3 to 5 decibel range. In most pro studios, it's between 2 and 3 decibel dips.
But you're talking about RT60 like reverb time?
Frequency response and reverb times is typically around like 2 to 300 milliseconds in a like mixing space, right? While in a live room, you could have half a second, you can have a whole second, depending on what you want your live room to sound like. For instance, when we went to what used to be 17 Hertz one-on-one studios, that live room was very live. Even though it had a lot of absorption kind of stuff going on around the top, the bottom half of the walls were all natural wood or glass, and it was all caving in. So you heard a lot of that room booming, but you didn't hear like ringing. You didn't hear any like flutter echo or anything. They treated it to sound live, but it was so big that you could get some tight recordings in the center of the room.
Yeah, the drums sounded huge
Yeah.
just being in that room.
But it didn't sound echoey or boomy. It sounded live and open.
Yeah.
But you wouldn't mix in a very live and open room because it's just too much going on in the room. You would kind of treat it to be a little bit tighter and a little more focused.
So generally speaking, a mixing setup in a mixing room, you want it as not dead, basically as dead as possible and balanced
It's
as
safe.
possible.
Yeah, dead is safe.
And then in a live room situation where you're recording instruments, you want it to be as balanced as possible, and that may be depending on your space. If your room is small and you're not going to be able to get a live open sound, you might
Without
just kill
too
it.
much like sound
Yeah.
reflecting in a bad way.
Yeah, it might be best to just kill it.
Yeah.
Versus if you have bigger space, if you for some reason you're in a living room or something like that, you got more space, higher ceilings,
Yeah.
or you're in a
If
loft
you're one of the
type
people in like
situations.
Malibu with like your 20-foot ceilings in the living room, like you're probably doing fine.
Yeah. So I think that's what. So those are the two different types of situations that we want to be in. Let's talk about in a non-ideal space using absorption in a recording room, and then let's go into a mixing room a little bit later at the end.
Sure.
First off, in a recording room, if you have multiple rooms in a house or in an apartment or whatever, let's and you haven't quite put anything in. So you just moved in, you haven't picked a room which one to use. They're very similar, but what things are you looking for when you want to pick a space, which room to work in?
Typically not square. Square usually has like nodes that all just kind of align on top of each other because it's equal distant in every direction.
That's the same with mixing too. You want to pick the longer room.
Yeah. So like let's say you're putting a vocalist in the middle of the room, chances are they're having phase cancellations in the middle of the room because reflections are 3 feet to the left and 3 feet to the right, 3 feet in front of you, 3 feet behind you. So it's equal wavelength. And let's say that whatever frequency is 3 feet long, then it nulls itself out just outside of you. But if it's 6 feet long, you're actually nulling right on top of yourself.
Yeah, so like for example, like a one bedroom, the master bedroom for some like maybe like 16 by 15 feet,
Yeah.
and the smaller bedroom might be 11 and a half feet by 15 feet.
Yeah.
Actually speaking, dimensionally, that 11 and a half by 15 is going to be better room,
Yeah.
especially if it's long-wise and if you can put your desk
Yeah.
in the middle. Anyway,
There's ways to combat it by like putting up like floor standing baffles and put them like almost caving in on themselves so you kind of minimize some of those like pretty static reflections. But it goes back into like, what are you recording? What's the goal?
Maybe we briefly talk about absorption and acoustics and how egg cartons and foam doesn't work.
Yeah. And carpets.
Yeah.
Carpets, I actually looked up the study on carpets for sound, which is kind of fascinating to see what they actually do and what they don't do. And at
The
what
absorption coefficients or whatever the hell it's
Yeah.
called.
it's literally like 1 decibel at 1K and above.
Yeah, so it's very, very little. I mean, it's something, but it's very little.
Yeah.
And there's so let's talk about that real quick. There's So basically, in the professional world, what you want to use is 703 Owen and Corning.
So it
What is
depends.
it?
So there's been a shift into mineral wool, like rock wool.
Rockwool is popular.
Reason being is that Owens Corning 703, it is fire rated and everything. It is good. The price per what you're getting is decent compared to other like
But
Rockwool
some sort of
equivalents.
insulation wrapped in
Yeah,
wood and
the reason
fabric.
Rockwool has become popular is because it's not insulation. It's not using fiberglass.
Oh, so it's safer?
It's safer. It's better for your health. When you touch it, you don't need to wear protective gloves because it's not a bunch of pieces of fiberglass going into your skin. It's actually just
And it's
rock that's
cheaper.
been broken down.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. And if you want something that's an equivalent to it, you can do like Comfort Board 60 or 80, and it's an equivalent price, if not a little bit cheaper, with Rockwool. So a lot of the acoustics being done in studios, like if you hire a fabric mate, they use their own Recore, which is actually better spec-wise than Owens Corning 703 or Rockwool, because it's a bit easier to handle. It's less of a breathing hazard and all that. So all around, it's safer for the people who build panels, and it's safer for people who have them in their space.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to bring this up briefly. A little bit of a tangent here. DL in the comments of the live stream, we are live streaming right now, asks, does working out of a house, wait, hold on, what does it say? Do you really want rappers to know where you live? Basically, working out of a house, the dangers of working out of a house. We'll say it is ideal to not work in a house for tracking. For mixing, it matters less. But for tracking, for safety reasons, because you have to have the clients come into the house and you don't know who you're working with sometimes.
Yeah.
It is safer to do it outside the house. But we're talking about like
if you have to
hobbies
work from home,
whatever.
Like some people, a great example of this notion is if you look up Andrew Masters on YouTube and you see like, I forget what the series is called, but basically like unbelievable home studios or crazy home studios, whatever. But the people that are doing these crazy home studios and all that, they have their own safety precautions in place, but usually they only work with the same people they've been working with for a while. Part of their success is consistency, and so you don't bring around people that you don't trust.
That's a good point. Yeah, typically you don't. Yeah, if you are working in a home studio in a producing recording setting, if you've been doing it for a while, you work with people you already know. You're not bringing in new clients from Google Maps, like random people. So I think it's not an issue so much of like rappers necessarily, but it's more of an issue of like if you're consistently working with random people that you've never worked with before, that is something to consider when setting up a home studio versus outside studio. But let's just continue to talk about like if this is the thing that you've decided.
Works best
working
for you.
at home is like the only thing that you're able to do, whatever, or if you're just there as a hobbyist. And lots of people are hobbyists listening to this podcast.
Yeah.
So anyway, so going back to absorption, using some sort of, you can buy panels like GIK Acoustics, which we always recommend. They should sponsor us. If you're out in LA, there's like John Hunter Acoustics, who like he builds, customizes, installs them all himself, or his team does. It's the same sort of thing, but you literally build hundreds of acoustic panels every single year in various sizes. Yeah. And they're really quite more affordable than people think, especially when you buy them. Because GIK, if you buy this 2 foot by 4 foot by, what is it? It's like 4, 5, 6 inches deep. I think this one's like 5 inches deep, I think.
I think it's the 4 inch plus 3/4 inch or 1.5 inches of framing in the back.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. That's like I think for like a box of 2 panels is close to
$200?
It's like close to $200.
I think it's like $100 each.
Yeah, it's like $100 each ish. Building it yourself.
If I were to, so I actually just did this weekend.
Yeah.
I cracked open one just to see what it was because I needed to build 2 more identicals. Total cost of material broke it down to about $30.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
So literally about $30 a panel, $30 to $50 per panel. I think is a great idea. And we've done episodes in the past that measure, like there's a website that you can go to determine how much of the wall you should be covering in absorptive material. But this is very, very important, especially in a home environment, especially if you're in a non-ideal space, square, low ceilings, things of that nature. Deader is better is a phrase that we hear often in the industry that we want to clarify. That's not exactly true. We want to rephrase it to deader is safer, especially in non-ideal acoustic environments, but it's not better. Better for recording is oftentimes live, spacious.
Yeah.
open rooms,
Yeah.
right?
Like for instance, if you ever listen to a recording in your home that you did in your closet full of clothing and all that, cuz I'll be honest, I think just about everybody's done that at some point.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it was like recording at a client's house or recording at your own place or you just needed a quick solution. Um there's a certain amount of like boxiness to the sound even in a bigger dead space. Like it just, there's something unnatural about it. And so when we talk about these like big grandiose vocals that just sound like they're right in front of you, a lot of times it's like the mic isn't right on their mouth. In fact, if you're recording with your mouth against the mic, you're doing it wrong. Just to give you context, you should read your owner's manual or go to the website and see their recommended spacings. And a lot of times you'll see about 6 inches to like a foot sometimes. But yeah, realistically speaking, like you want that big grandiose sound, you need space. And sometimes that room is part of that space, because the more space you give yourself between the mic and your source, whether it be a guitar amp or anything, the more you're going to hear the room play a factor in the sound.
Yeah, there's the idea of, okay, so we got room effects nodes, and there's a couple ideas. For example, if you want to be really cheap, I think it looks better if you build panels. Like if you're watching on YouTube or Twitch or whatever, and you see our videos, you see I have acoustic panels lined up on the walls.
Mm-hmm.
If there's other ways that you could do it, like for example, if you go to, oh, this can be stinky, but for some reason you have like a bunch of like
Orlex?
mattresses,
Oh, yeah.
like bed mattresses that you can line them up against the wall. I've seen like a mattress fort instead of a vocal booth made of like
yeah.
twin mattresses stacked on top of each other, things like that. That would work well. I've seen also like heavy weighted moving blankets
Mm-hmm.
put not on the wall directly, but like hung via like a couple inches off the wall with
Yeah.
like a some sort of like hanger, or what is it, like the curtain hangers where the
Oh,
rods that
yeah,
you
yeah.
stick off the
So,
wall for curtains. It's for
yeah,
curtains.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
curtain rods.
Yeah, it's curtain rods, but they put a frame together out of it.
Yeah, it's curtain
Yeah.
rods, so it's like a few inches, maybe like 4 inches off the wall, and then
Yeah.
they hang heavy duty moving blankets around.
Yeah, so there's a company that actually popped up because of this trend, and they sell you a PVC kit. So it's literally PVC piping for plumbing, but they also give you like a dense little curtain to actually put on it.
Mm.
Yeah, so you can do that. And in fact, I actually know plenty of people that are signed to labels that actually record like that from home. Yeah, but honestly speaking, like there's a bunch of different ways, but one of the biggest issues that a lot of people run into in their home is like noise. You know, they maybe the door doesn't have any weather stripping or anything, so you can't really block out the sound from outside. The room gets hot, but the AC is loud, so you're trying to record with the window open so it doesn't get too hot. You might be like in my case, the room is 25 feet long, but at the 25th foot is a kitchen. You know, so part of the issue can be that maybe you hear the fridge going off in the background or something, you know. Maybe you live near an airport and the plane flies by once in a while. You know, that's where like soundproofing is kind of the factor. And no amount of acoustic panels is going to make all of these things go away. It can help dampen it though, because when we're talking about noise reduction or lowering the intensity of sounds escaping a space, we're talking about velocity like blocking, essentially. Like you want to reduce the amount of velocity from the frequency, right? If you can put up some panels for bass
Wait,
absorption.
I don't know this term.
Okay,
Velocity
so-
from frequency.
So the idea is like you want to reduce the velocity of something, like the amount of pressure being pushed onto it as it's moving in a direction, right? If you put a panel in front of it, you kind of dampen that velocity. Does that make
I'm gonna have
sense?
to trust you. I've
Okay.
never heard this, but I don't know what
Yeah,
I'm talking about. So
I could be
uh,
voicing it wrong, but look it up. It's a thing where they're like, okay, you can't soundproof, but you can dampen through like shaping the velocity. You can slow it down, and that's what like
Is
putting
that
up a
through
baffle.
air?
Yeah,
like putting up
Yeah.
solid air.
solid air. Put up a baffle, and it slows down the air. It won't stop it, but it will slow it down. The bass will not be suddenly blocked off because you put one baffle up.
Yeah.
But if you notice when you're tracking in a live room with a band and something, they'll put baffles around the drum set. The idea is to try to minimize the bleed into other mics, right? That's the whole concept. It's not going to soundproof anything, but it can help. So maybe you put a baffle in front of a door that has a bunch of noise behind it. It's not going to soundproof it, but it'll at least minimize the noise floor.
Or like sealing all the cracks. So for example, like you can
Exactly.
get like under the door, you can get like the
Weather stripping
weather stripping or some sort of
yeah.
like you've seen it where it's like you
I
close
have
that
to
space.
install 3 of them this coming week. They're called what are they called?
But it's funny because like open air is the worst transmitter of sounds. So like water,
Yeah.
like in water or through solids, sound travels faster.
Yeah.
So if you use some sort of like dense fabric or rock wool and then leave open air behind it, that'll kill the most amount of sound. We're talking about soundproofing now, but anyway, when it comes to acoustic treatments with the rooms, absorption is the way to go. Diffusion is something that is going to be used for larger rooms.
Yeah,
it's not
to
gonna
be honest, if you're in a room that's like 10 by 8 or something like that, or even 10 by 15, diffusion won't actually fully work. Like 10 by 15 is like, I guess you could say like a bare minimum if you put it on the 15-foot run of it. You know, like diffusion needs space to fully work.
There you go. So that's another thing to think about. So just
Gaskets,
make sure
that's what it's called.
gaskets. Oh, just regular
Gaskets, door
gaskets.
gaskets. Yeah, they make specific ones like auto release gaskets and all that. On a current project, I have to do like 3 of them where they're the same ones that are put up at Capitol.
So briefly, I want to talk about your room since you literally just did this. First off, you built a room for. Are we allowed to say who? Like did you finish that room, the Too Short room?
Actually, yeah. So Too Short, his room should be done this week.
Is that the one with the lighting
with the
strips?
LED and everything?
Yeah, okay, cool. So that one is going to be used for tracking or for mixing or for both?
Both. We built a 9x6 vocal booth with 10-foot ceilings.
Okay, so let's talk about how you approach that room, and I don't want necessarily we don't have to talk specifically about the budgets, but how that could impact what you were able to do.
Yeah, because budget was a big
your
challenge.
Yeah, and versus your house where. So tell us about the dimensions and how you approach those and try to solve the problems.
Sure. I could say it's not like I signed an NDA, so I'll speak obviously respectfully, but also just saying like some of the changes that were made throughout the time.
Like what was the dimensions of the room, the T-shirts room?
For instance, the control room is roughly, I think, 17 or 18 by 28.
Oh, it's a large
room. It's a
room.
big room. It's bigger than our A room for sure.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. Like imagine our A room plus the booth is all the A room.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did you use absorption? Like how much absorption did you use in the back of the room, front of the room? Like did you do like a couple feet of absorption?
So there's different stages of absorption. I'll say it like that. So as far as just to clarify, absorption for the acoustic treatment or absorption for the soundproofing, like because it is technically made by home contractors.
Okay, so you have 2 layers. No, let's just talk about the treatment, acoustic treatment.
Okay, so we tried to keep it simple and tried to keep the costs down. So what we did is we went with Recore, which actually has if you want to look up the coefficient chart, like it actually does really well around like 250, and then 500 is usually where most absorption like material like Rockwool 703, 500 is usually when they do the best. This one does better at lower frequencies, even at 2 inches. So we did FabricMate. We contracted FabricMate to come out. SPG is the company that did the installation, and they basically did 2 inches all around of Recore, but on the speaker wall and on the corners in the mix position, we actually did 12 inches deep. So we actually created acoustic baffles into the corners of Too Short's mix positions. So you'll see like the ceiling is 9 feet tall, but right above the mix position, it's actually 10 feet tall. So in the corners, we packed it with 12 inches of absorption and then put actual like the same fabric that we're using for the rest of the paneling into those corners. So it looks like consistency from the ceiling to the walls. And then in the speaker walls and in the sub cavities, we actually packed those with insulation as well, surrounding the speaker and everything, because part of the cavity design is leaving it open for them to actually swap out what speaker they're using in the future. So like they have certain speakers now, but if they want to buy Augsburgers, they can actually reframe into Augsburgers.
Oh, sweet.
Without having to like completely destroy what they built.
Hold on. So let's go back into this. So how much of the square footage of the wall did you put acoustic treatment on? Is it fully covered?
All of it except the ceiling, except for the mix position. The mix position, we built a 10 by 8 I think it is a 10 by 8 ceiling cloud that's 6 inches, and we have it spaced 6 inches off of the ceiling,
So basically the entire room is covered in fabric walls with
except for the
absorptive
back
material,
ceiling.
except for the back ceiling.
Yeah.
Right. So that's pretty high grade. That costs a lot. That takes a lot more planning. That you had
we're
contractors in place.
Just for the fabric made alone, I think we still had a budget of like 25 to 30 grand.
For just the fabric.
Just fabric mate, the whole
Okay.
treatment.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then for you, and like let's go into your home studio that you literally just finished building out.
Yeah.
What were you trying to solve? Like obviously I
Roof
would be surprised
reflection
if
would
you
be
had
the
like
first
30.
one.
Yeah. So you don't have like a 30-50 grand budget for your home.
Hell no,
yet.
I don't.
So-
I
so
wish I did. At
within
that
your-
point, what am I doing at that place?
So what within your restrictions, what
Uh-huh.
are the most important things? Like what are the priorities that you have and how did you go about fixing the problems that you found?
Correcting RT60 is usually the first issue most people have.
So RT60 is what?
Reverb time 60 seconds milliseconds.
Yeah, I don't
Like
yeah.
how long it takes for a certain frequency to decay below 60
60 dB. Yeah.
60 dB. That's
That's what
is.
it was.
Yeah.
Not milliseconds. Yeah.
Yeah.
So tell us about this. And so you talked about reflection points, the obvious reflection points.
Yeah. So usually it's the first reflection points that everybody's going to treat first, because if you think about like home filtering, right, you have the first signal coming from your speaker and then bouncing off the wall and coming towards you. It's the same idea even if you're setting up a booth. Like if you think about putting a vocal in the dry room, that vocal is bouncing off of those walls and getting back into the mic. So usually first reflection points is what you're trying to tackle first. But there's also things like corners where there's bass buildup and things of that nature. There's also the back of the room, which is slapping the signal back to you because
And you have a
speakers are
very
fake.
long room. What are the
Yeah,
dimensions of your room?
9.5 by 25 feet.
Oh, so it's
It's
long
very-
and narrow.
It's very long and it's narrow.
That's pretty ideal, though. That's fairly ideal because you could throw it into the
fairly.
back.
Yeah, like I won't be able to fit Augsburgers, but I can definitely fit like some focal trios
with
or
a long-
Genelec 1037s.
And you with
stuff.
the long throw room, you can actually have sub frequencies. Like you can actually like put in a.
I'm
sub
not gonna
that would be
lie,
useful.
my low end is oddly like. I'm curious to hear subs in my room and see if I actually need them, because I've.
No, I'm saying that you actually have the space long
For
throw
them-
wise for the sub frequencies to develop
Yeah,
without phase issues.
Exactly.
Without as many nodes. And it's interesting.
we did a session on Saturday, my first sit-in session. In fact, first session period. Like, in fact, part of the driving reason why I worked on it so quickly versus taking my time was because I had already scheduled sessions. Like people that regularly like to work with me in person, that just they're used to coming to my place. They know my stuff. They know I know my stuff on my system, and they'd prefer for me to work on my stuff on my system than go somewhere else. Yeah, so I needed to meet deadlines when I set this up. Yeah.
So anyway, so first off, you don't have a $50,000 budget, so you were working on first reflections.
Mm-hmm.
You were just building acoustic panels. How did you go about tackling it? So you picked one side of the room. You were gonna do long throw. That was the first thing.
Yeah.
So the length of the room is behind you.
Yeah.
The 25 feet is basically behind you. You're right into the corner. In your case, you have a fireplace on one side, so you covered it up because it was ugly. And
Built
so
a false wall and a false floor for it. Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's right. So you built out, you framed it. You did a
Yep.
little bit of framing. How deep are your panels right in front of you, covering the fireplace?
They are all 6 inches deep, except for the corner traps. The corner traps are 12 inches deep.
Nice.
Yeah.
And corners is where bass builds up. So this is pretty common knowledge. Bass builds up in the corner. So if
Yeah.
you want to, I would say that that's the biggest issue is like low end buildup because that's
Yeah.
hardest to take care of with basic absorptive materials. Like, I don't understand exactly what's going on, but basically the more low end you want, the deeper the absorptive materials has to be. For example, if you only have like 1 inch of absorptive material, it's only going
Yeah.
to catch frequencies up down to like 2K.
Yeah.
Versus like if you
yeah.
have a foot of absorptive materials, it might go down to like
Yeah.
80 hertz.
I think there's I forget what the name of the website is, but there's like an acoustic absorber calculator website. Basically, you can say what the actual absorption material is like its actual density, and then you can plug that in, say how deep the panel's going to be.
I'm gonna look it up right now while you're talking. What did you call it?
Put like acoustic absorber calculator. It should pop up with that. But you can actually see the effect of air gapping acousticmodeling.com. That's the one.
Oh
So check it
yeah.
out. 100 millimeters is 4 inches. Every 25 is an inch. So if we were to say 100 plus, watch go down instead. Keep that 100 there. And then, yeah, so just
Air gap.
yeah, air gap is 100 as well. So watch hit calculate, and you can see where the coefficient actually shows you
Oh,
you're getting lower absorption, but you lose a little bit of that like 900 hertz, 800 hertz when you add that air gap. So what you're doing is you're extending the absorption into the low end, but you're sacrificing other ranges.
okay. Hold on, real quick. This is acousticmodeling.com
Yeah,
slash porous. So
yeah,
just type in like, yeah, what did we type in? Acoustic absorber calculator, and you can like compare just off of like
material
physics and
types and all that.
acoustics. Yeah,
Yeah,
you can calculate how much these frequencies are being absorbed. Yeah, and just by adding,
yeah,
what we're looking at is a graph that is literally comparing 100 millimeters of absorption versus 100 millimeters of absorption and 100 millimeters of air right behind that
exactly.
absorption. And you can see that it goes down, it catches frequencies almost 100 hertz lower
Yeah,
with air.
with air.
Yeah,
Yeah,
which is
and
cool.
the whole idea behind that is once again, like we were talking about earlier, by affecting the velocity of the frequency, just the source material's velocity in the air, right? By slowing it down a little bit, it still goes through the panel. That's why we can't soundproof with just acoustic panels. It's not going to happen. But because it's hitting that wall and trying to get back, it actually has to go through that material a second time versus just being trapped against the wall. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? So it's going through another layer of absorption.
And the air is just the worst transmitter of
Yeah.
sounds anyway.
Now
So
here's the catch though. If you were to plug in a bigger air gap, you'll notice that it starts losing its effectiveness. So your air gapping usually has to be 1-to-1 at a max. So if you plug in like a 200 air gap,
all right, let's
we'll
do
say
400.
400.
Yeah, let's go 400.
You see that?
Oh,
You start
weird.
losing other things. Like you get more low end, but you're starting to lose out on your mid absorption.
Interesting. So
Yeah.
let's do like 50. Yeah,
Yeah, and it's
interesting.
actually
Okay.
more consistent with the rest of the
So let's
absorption.
go like 200 millimeters of absorptive
Yeah, so an
materials.
8-inch panel with a 2-inch gap or 4-inch gap. See?
Yeah, and then let's go 200 here. Yeah, it starts getting like
Yeah,
interesting.
so I think 300 would make my corner trap.
Interesting. Yeah, like there's only so much air that you can put in before it starts
Yeah.
to
So
create
if you were to
other
plug in
problems.
absorber thickness 300,
Okay. Is that what you have right now?
yeah,
Okay, 300.
and then the air gap behind it is about 200, so 8 inches.
And by the
Wow,
way,
it's
there's like
really
there's
working hard.
yeah, this is based on there's also different types of absorptive materials have different types of like whatever coefficients. I forgot what it's called.
Yeah. Like
Absorptive
imagine the
coefficient or
density of
something.
like Safe and Sound, which is very fluffy, and something that has like a higher R rating, like Comfort Board 60 or Comfort Board 80. You'll see like R ratings of like 15, 30, 45, 60. But the whole idea is they become more rigid and firm. They're still technically breathable. They're still actually designed for sound and things of that nature. But you'll start noticing that a little more rigid of a material actually does better absorption in the low end. It's because it actually has a lot more force to hold it back versus the fluffier material. The fluffier material has an easier time absorbing kind of like mids and higher up of that, but have a harder time maintaining what's going on in the lows. Click that box. Boom.
Yeah.
So
Sorry, the website
300
was
and
going down for a
200.
second.
And that's what my corner traps are doing.
Yeah, your
So
corner traps are getting almost
about
down.
3 times more effective in the low end.
Yeah, and in the sub frequencies below 100 hertz.
Yeah.
That's super cool. Yeah. So for example, one of the most in the area, like a big famous room for its acoustic treatment was like Bob's room.
Echo Room, which is
Echo
now
Room.
Fab Factory, which I
Yeah,
found out.
but it was
Bob's room stayed almost exactly the same. The only thing that changed is the color aesthetic,
Oh,
but
yeah.
they kept his room exactly the same because there was no need to change it.
But he has like I think he has like 4 feet of material
Yeah.
in front of the front of his room, and the back end was like another
Yeah,
4 to 6 feet of acoustic
Yeah,
treatment.
and then even then, there's still air gaps.
Yeah, that's wild.
Yeah, and I think in his air gaps, he showed me a photo of the diagram once, and maybe I missaw this, but usually when I see this, this is what it shows. He has floating panels in the inside of it that are at different angles, And that way it refocuses the energy versus just absorbing it. It actually plays with the frequencies and just pushes them in a different direction as well.
Yeah.
So as they enter the gap, like they actually go through another stage of, I don't know what his logic behind it was, but he has one of the best sounding rooms in LA. So
Yeah.
it's something that I'm really
You
curious
did,
about.
yeah, for sure. Let's talk about this going back to before we get super ultra nerdy
Mhm.
and we start talking about things that we quite frankly is past our depth of knowledge here. But some of the things that are really practical, if you are recording or mixing from home, use a lot more absorptive materials. Don't use egg crates.
Yeah.
Don't use like egg cartons or the Amazon 1-inch to 2-inch fabric thing. Not only
Yeah.
does it not look good, it's hard to, no, let me say it again. It's difficult to make it look good. And on top of that, it's not that effective. It's better than nothing, but it's just not worth the money, especially if you can build it yourself.
I'm not gonna lie. There's two really big red flags with those things. Once you get to a certain point, this isn't an elitist mindset, but it's more like a once you know, it's hard to just look away. Once you know that those things are not effective, and you walk into a space with somebody who talks the big talk about their amazing studio, and then you see like those foam things on the wall or egg crates, you're like, I don't think this person actually knows what they're talking about,
they definitely
because
don't.
they wouldn't be using this
It's
and
not
talking
professional.
so big about it. You know,
It's not
so
professional.
whenever I see ads on like Facebook Marketplace or all that kind of stuff where people are trying to promote their smaller studios and stuff like that, and it's like, oh, one of the best sounding rooms in LA, and I see
No
like
way.
foam, I'm like,
There's
Cap.
no way.
I don't
There's no
see
way.
it. And the other side too is the amount of money that you're paying for that. You could have built your own panel. Like if a friend of mine, he builds speakers, and it turns out like his dad actually has like a full wood shop and everything. If you can just talk to your dad, your friend, anybody that has tools, and just say, hey, I will pay you X amount just to help me out for the day, you'd probably, with what you paid them, still spent less and gotten significantly better results.
So again, we always recommend. Okay, so there's a couple things that I want to wrap up with. Couple ideas.
Mm-hmm.
One, the most important thing you should spend your money on is acoustic treatment. This is before
it was
converters.
the first thing I did with my new space.
Yes, this is before preamps. This is before converters. This is before microphone. This is before compressors. Anything else, outboard gear, anything else, the first thing that you should do is to have acoustic treatment. If you are spending money on, especially on compressors, do you need to take that?
It can wait for a second.
Okay,
Yeah.
sure. If you but anyway, there's if you need to, that's the first things first. Before microphones, anything, work on acoustic treatments. It's not the most fun expense. It's not the funnest thing to buy, but it's going to make your mic sound better. It's going to actually help your preamp sound better. Anything that you buy in the signal chain later, it's going to sound better. It's going to make your speakers sound better. It's just gonna everything is going to relate back down to the acoustic treatment of your room. Number two, the thing that I want to talk about or recap is you can learn how to build this acoustic treatment yourself. Just go on YouTube, how to build acoustic panels. There's so many different techniques and ways to build them at various different costs with different materials, and it is significantly more. The barrier to entry on, if let's say you're someone that's never worked with your hands like me, I don't have a history of contractors in my bloodline, I don't know how to do anything with my hands, but even I have built many acoustic panels and can do it pretty easily.
Yeah.
So the barrier of entry is pretty low, and it's something that you're just going to have to do. Like if you're trying to do audio for a living, this is a skill worth having, how to build acoustic panels. And I know many people, including you, who went from a necessity of my own to building it for other people as a part of my income. That is one way of building income that you can do. So it's a good skill to have regardless.
And it's actually a really good, I guess you could say, opener into, hey, I want to get to know these people. Sometimes those people need help with other things other than just production.
There you go.
Yeah.
And that's the only thing. Acoustic treatment is the number one indicator of like, do you know what you're doing or not?
Yeah.
It's just straight down.
It's a priority shower.
It is a yes, exactly.
If
So,
you've got all the best speakers in a non-treated
shitty
room, period.
yeah.
Like let's just say that you spent 20 grand on speakers, but you're still working in a room that sounds like a bathroom.
You're not getting the 20 grand out of those speakers.
No.
Nor are you impressing anybody that actually knows anything about those speakers.
Yeah.
So-
At which point, if you bought them because let's just say ego, then you're not doing it your justice, you know?
Yeah, we're but anyway, this is a very important thing, which is why we bring it up. We're talking about it. If you do have questions, I'm sure if you tag Lou on Discord, he'll answer basic questions.
Yeah.
If you want to do more in-depth designing and planning, then Lou, I'm sure, has a consultation fee where he charges by hour per project or something like that, just for some schematics and ideas.
I'm actually flying out Wednesday morning to New York to do a consultation out there. No, to Texas. Yeah.
Those are very different places, New York and Texas.
Yes, they are, but
To
they're
Texas?
places that I don't typically go to.
Okay, there you go.
Yeah.
Cool. So this is something you can do. Just join our Discord. I think mixingmusicpodcast.com/Discord. You can always ask some questions. And if you have the budgets, there are professional studio designers. You can hire Lou for a full project if you have the budgets to do so. If you need some help with any sort of stuff, there it is. So just be very understanding of, let me rephrase that. Just understand how much work should go into this and how important this is. I don't think we can properly tell you the weight of the importance of this stuff, especially mixing. I think I said we would talk about mixing rooms, but in mixing rooms, corners are important. Getting the sound to be focused and direct. So reflection points, there's lots of YouTube channels that talk about reflection points and using a mirror on the wall, things like that.
Yeah, the mirror trick is the easiest to understand. If you could see the speaker, chances are it's reflecting right back at you from that point.
Yeah, so, and then same thing with like clouds and things of that nature.
Oh my God, I just put mine up yesterday and the world of the difference that it made. Oh.
One of the best basic acoustics videos for setting up a mixing room is it's the video. No, it's what's his name? Oh my goodness, it's Sonic Scoop. Sonic Scoop has like a 30-minute podcast episode about acoustics and setting up speakers, and it's sponsored by KRK. So you'll notice he's like using KRK speakers to demonstrate, and he talks about nodes and like 30%, so like not putting the speakers 30% or 50%, and like different percentages of the room to avoid nodes, which is a whole nother conversation that we're not talking about.
There's another room calculator where if you just plug in your room's dimensions and everything, and it can actually tell you some basic node points that should pop up.
Yeah, so anyway, for more basics on how acoustics work, go watch that Sonic Scoop episode. It's really fantastic. He does a great job. There's a lot more. I think that this is something that if you want to have a studio, we want to emphasize the importance of educating yourself, at least on the very basics, as much as we've done the research on. Like, I feel like Lou has more knowledge than I do, but I think like the basic understanding, even for me, like you should be able to pass a 100 level college class acoustics without studying. Like that is the amount of information that you kind of should know when building out a studio. So go ahead and do that. So and also, watch videos and do research.
Just word of advice: don't buy a Helmholtz resonator unless you can actually prove that the person building it knows what they're doing, because they're extremely hard to build. They're extremely expensive, and you need so many of them that if you have a room anywhere smaller than 10 by 15, it actually makes little to no difference. Yeah, unless you're that specific with the measurements and know what you're doing.
Yeah, Helmholtz resonators are very complicated. But anyway, that's it for this episode. Hopefully it helps. I know there's a lot of information missing, and I think the parts of our knowledge which we don't know is very obvious. But I think that we hope that this conversation empowers you to do some of your own research and to get a better sounding room and to get better recordings, better music, sound more professional. And on that note, happy mixing, my friends, and stay saucy.
Boom.
Okay, let's answer some of these questions here real fast. Also, if you want us to do an entire episode about a topic, let us know what topics you want us to talk about. We can debate whether or not we want to do it. Have you ever recorded any live instruments? Yes, we can do. We've done some episodes. We can do a live instruments episode.
I'm down.
I think that's a good one. How are you, gentlemen? Good. How long will a Pro Tools perpetual license work and receive updates? Updates is for a year, but you can use whatever version you buy forever, as long as your computer keeps supporting it. Does working out of the house that you live in want rappers to know where you live? Yeah, I don't want randoms knowing where I live. This is a scare that I had once where It was my friends, like people that I knew that I trusted, but like this is
Oh,
before I had the
yeah.
studio in Utah when I was working out of the apartment. I was like
Mm,
21, just married,
yeah.
and my wife was home alone. Like we were brand freshly new married in this
Mm-hmm.
basement apartment, and a random friend of mine came and knocked on the door, and I was a little bit late.
Mm-hmm.
And so like strangers were waiting outside. She didn't want to let them in because she didn't know who they were,
Yeah.
and like so it's like a really awkward thing. That's like something that
Yeah.
we designated at the very beginning. Like we do not let randoms come to our house unless like I'm
Like,
there.
yeah.
At the very least. How do you get good enough to run your own studio? Is it learning in music school? No, definitely not.
No.
Or time working on projects?
Don't go to school unless you're trying to sharpen the knife. That's it. Like, you can sharpen the knife in many, many ways, but if the school system type of education workflow works for you, that's the only time you should be going to school.
I started my studio. I started and went into debt for a studio before I did 1 hour of classes. I didn't do a
Yeah,
single
same.
class before
I
I
had my
was
studio
ordained.
for 2 years and worked with a bunch of people before I even went to school, to the point where the teachers made it a point to be like fact checking things with me, and I'm like, "What? I'm paying you to
This is
fact check."
interesting. This is interesting. He says, "Are there music school students that graduate but still don't make good music?" Hell
Yes.
fucking yes.
Yes, I know many.
Hell fucking yes.
Sorry, classmates.
There are
I'm
graduate
not talking about
students.
all of you.
There are graduate students that like have PhDs and master's degrees that also fit in that category. There are people that have barely finished high school that make fantastic music. It is something. It's. I don't want to say it's talent. I don't believe in talent, but taste and hard work that you don't need a constructed education system to do if you just go after it. So what happens after the 1 year okay, hold on. Is there a current way to earn money in the music industry? Of course. People like Metro Boomin have a network of people that are willing to help him. His network and major label influence are profitable. Of course. Yeah, I'm not a big fan. It's important to recognize how small the GDP of the music industry is, the recorded music industry, which is what we work in, not the live shows.
Yeah.
According to RIAA, is that how we say? Do people say RIAA? What do people say?
I say RIAA.
Okay, sweet, whatever.
Yeah.
RIAA, which is the foundation that does the metrics and gives out gold, platinum, diamond records. 2019, the gross revenue of the entire recorded music industry was only like $11 billion. To put in perspective, the film and TV industry in the United States alone, not worldwide, is like $330 billion. Porn and tech is like $1.3 to $1.6 trillion.
God damn.
So yeah, $11 billion is nothing. But the good news is since the pandemic, it's been going up and up and up. Vinyl sales went up a lot from 2021 to 2022 by quite a bit. CD sales are also going up, which is interesting.
CD.
I know.
Wait,
Interesting. But I will say also, before you hate on Spotify and Apple Music and streaming services, almost 90% of the income in the recorded music industry comes from streaming services. So without them, we would not have a recording industry. There would not be a recorded music industry. So be careful who you hate on. But there's not that much money in it. So before you start complaining, there's not that much money in it, but there definitely is. And when it comes to audio, there's other jobs too. Like you can make a lot of money doing like ADR for film and TV,
Yeah.
working at, doing Foley or doing something not pop music. If you're willing to do audio in different parts of the community or different parts of the different disciplines, audio in different disciplines, then there's a lot of money to it. Live sound, it makes more money than studio stuff. So
By a long shot.
yeah, so
for a 6-hour day, I could take home $1,000, which is like what, 150, 160 an hour
for
kinda
live
thing?
sound, yeah.
Yeah.
But it is live sound, which means it sucks. No, I'm just kidding.
Actually, I'll say this: he's not wrong. There are many times where it can suck balls. I've been in those situations. But for instance, I just got hired for another festival. That's I think end of this month or early next month. But on those, like, I actually work really well. In fact, it's with Jonah. If you like the people you work with and you have an understanding of how you guys work and you can make quick work of it, those days usually go by real fast, and they're cool, simple days. But that's assuming you get to work with cool people.
Yeah, what is the current rate for studio time per hour? It's variable based on your market and your network. the average per hour rate in Utah is different from California. If you wanted to, there's nothing malicious or bad about calling the local going on Google Maps, typing in recording studios and calling them and asking them what they charge and figuring it out that way. I would say in general, though, as for business, is not to compete based on price. It does help when you undercut people by charging a little bit less. But at the long-term game, you don't want to compete based on price. You want to compete based on value. So, like,
For instance,
example,
a good example is your reel that you posted recently, where it's like, if you want to work with somebody and get your sound expensive, I work without ego and things of that nature. I'm on time.
or something as simple, as simple as if there's no hip hop studios and you love hip hop, like that's what I did in Utah. Is like every other studio is like rock and pop studios, indie songwriter studios, and I was the only studio in the area that like did hip hop and R&B type stuff, and that helped put a niche in my market. So it's like I wasn't competing based on price.
Yeah,
I was charging the same amount.
That's honestly the best way to go about it. Like, don't make a mention of all the gear you have. Like, show images of it and stuff, and those that know.
Yeah,
but
trying to differentiate based on gear is very difficult.
Yeah, especially in LA. Everybody's got a CL1B. I have one and I don't even like using it. So if your main pitch is I have a CL1B, it's like, I'm sorry, dude, but you lost me as a bet.
Yeah, your ROI is very low on that.
Yeah, a trip to IKEA will make you more money than a trip to Guitar Center.
Yeah. Okay, next. How should you know your DAW before charging local artists?
You should, and you can start and learn some new things along the way. But you should at least know how to track fast, and you should at least learn how to do some basic creative things like in delay throw or reverb throw and things.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if there's a generalized. At this point, you can start charging people. You can charge. I don't think. I think that you should be careful on doing free work, but at the same time, like I think. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to be a perfectionist. I think perfectionism always kills businesses and kills creativity. So, like,
you can just start at a lower rate that seems respectable for both parties.
I would say charge as much as you're comfortable with, and I think that if you're not a psychopath or if you're not delusional or crazy or stupid, like I think the amount of comfort that you have is a good place to start.
Like if you have a minimum wage job that you hate, but you can find a lot of clients by charging minimum wage for your recording time, and you don't really fully know what you're doing, trust me, those people probably know that looking at your paycheck. Just saying, like if you're charging $20 an hour in LA for studio time, including the engineer, I don't think they're expecting the world from you. At least I'd hope not.
This is interesting. How important is a mic preamp / interface? Is a PreSonus USB 96 and a Sterling condenser mic good enough to make a professional level project? That's a really interesting and difficult question.
Yeah, I guess it depends on how well it works with the source.
Are you able to make a recording sound like Beyonce and Taylor Swift? Probably not.
But if you were in a very well treated space and everything with ideal acoustics and stuff, you could maybe get away with a better recording. This is where like acoustics comes back into play.
If you had that gear in a nice studio,
if you took that to East West, you could probably get something cool.
You'll get like 98% of the way there.
Yeah, but honestly, that extra check that you're spending on gear is really more of a tonal and like defining difference in your recording, but it's not going to be the reason the record is amazing or not. Like I've had clients who wouldn't book the studio in a room because we didn't have a Telefunken 251 and a BAE 1073 specifically. And the reason that they claimed is because we're trying to have consistency across the board in recording, because the last place we recorded at had the same thing. But I just let them know, I'm like, hey, I hear you. I understand. No worries. I'm just going to let you know at this rate, I cannot include a rental for those things. You can pay for the rental of those things, but just fair warning, just so that there's no surprises later. We're also acoustically in a different space, so you're not going to get the same recording anyways. So if you're spending the money thinking that you're going to get Chris Brown's vocals by getting his vocal chain, and you have not spent a penny in your treatment, I hate to tell you, but he spent a lot of money on his treatment.
Yeah. So that's an interesting question. I do think that low end gear like that, or like entry level gear, not low end, entry level gear like that, is good enough in 2024.
Yeah.
That you shouldn't. That's not an excuse to make bad songs, but yeah, that's all I'm gonna say. Like it's good enough where you shouldn't have to make bad songs. It's not keeping you from making anyway. So
Yeah.
who makes the best tutorials on how to make high quality modern rap beats? Yeah, I don't
Does Mitch have a
think,
YouTube
dude, it's
channel?
2024 and there are no high quality rap beats. Like, there's a reason why. Did you listen to Her Loss? The shit fucking sucks. There's no good songs on that as far as like quality and ingenuity goes. Like, sorry, that's me being really harsh and critical.
Her Loss?
Her Loss is Drake's last album.
Oh yeah, that thing. Yeah. Hold on, I can't say anything. I'm too biased.
Yeah, there's
but
too much
hearing
bias.
it, I was
There's
like,
a reason why
yeah.
rap music lost a lot of money as an industry this last year. It's because it's gone downhill.
Yeah.
It's gone downhill. Every beat, like, as soon as Twitch as soon as Twitch has like beat.
Yeah.
What is it? What is it, like speed runs? Make a beat in 30 seconds. Yeah, that's when it went down. Anyway, we're giving it a hard time, but
Yeah.
as far as making high quality modern rap beats, I think you should go for. I think it's okay not exactly knowing how to do it. If you can be clever and creative and do what you think sounds good, I think you're going to make better high quality modern rap beats than if you were to copy someone else. So
Yeah.
I think the problem with current modern day rap beats and the reason why it's losing so much money as an industry is because it's a lot of copy and paste. So I'd say go out and do whatever you think sounds best and be a little bit weird and crazy. Like, I think that's okay. I say give yourself permission to do that.
There's a really cool producer friend of ours, 44. I don't know if you've talked to him recently or not, but 44 basically creates
44th
like
floor.
yeah.
Okay.
Smoke Perps guy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, the funny thing is he's also really well known as like a sample pack creator and everything, but everything he does is on really cheap old gear, like the little Tascam 2-track tape recorders and things like that, and he's running his guitar through it and everything, and then recording this like really distorted and grimy sound. I'm just saying, if you're just recording some clean vocals and it's going on a really dirty and grimy track anyways, chances are you probably don't want like the most polished vocal on a grimy track. Probably want something that's going to fit the vibe anyways. So just be creative with it. Don't overthink it. And that's kind of the golden rule. Like, don't overthink it.
And also, DL, I will be clear, neither of us are like full-time producers, so I don't think you should be asking us. We're just engineers. So this is where I probably draw the line and say you should probably, who can make high-quality modern rap beats, we're not the ones to ask. I have no idea. We work with really talented individuals, but I don't know how they learned, where they learned. I just mix
a lot of times it's just being in the room with somebody and picking up a new trick. Like, even as an engineer, I've learned new tricks from other producers based on their workflow.
We assume so, but I don't know because I don't make beats like that. So that's something to consider. How many studio hours would it take to produce a 4-song demo or EP album? I don't know.
I will tell you this. The album I mastered on Saturday has been in progress for almost 2 years now, and Bob's been mixing it since the beginning of it. There's just, depending on your revision count, depending on your budget,
as long as it needs.
Yeah, how soon can you get the full budget necessary? Talk to whoever you're planning on working with, see what their costs are, and then calculate that based on, however much you're willing to put into it.
We should do an episode. This is really interesting. DL, this is interesting. This is questions that we get a lot. We're following the same string of logic. We should do this on the episode. Mm-hmm. We should talk about what is high quality music. What does that mean?
Perceivably high quality music.
Right now there's a disconnect. We're not on the same page. Because what is high quality music? You're assuming there's some barrier between like professional recordings and like not professional recordings. It's not gear that you buy. It's not even acoustic treatment. It's not something that you do or all of a sudden 10,000 hours. Yeah, it's interesting. We're not on the same page. It's not like something that you flip a switch and it just happens. It's not that. Yeah. It's literally a skill thing.
Yeah, like you could buy all the gear the same way you can buy an F1 car, but if the only thing you know how to do with it is drive to Vons,
we should
you're
talk
not
about
an
this.
F1 racer.
Hold on. Let me write this down. Hold on.
Yeah.
What?
But yeah, like it's just like DK said, there's no flipping a switch. Like it really comes down to like practice and experience, and learning to identify what is, supposedly high quality.
We should do that episode real quick. Let me
You got DK passionate, DL.
Yeah,
do
I think
this.
that's interesting because this is the same level of. I don't mean to say it like this, and this isn't.
This is no bash at anyone.
This is not. Don't take this personally, but I want you to understand. That's like low level thinking. Like people that don't know how it works will ask like questions like you're asking, the same sort of line of logic. What's keeping me from making it? And I think it's mostly just ego, just trying to convince yourself. It's just a matter of time. People need to be patient. People need to continue to practice. And everybody came from the same place. Like there's not somebody born with natural talent. Even Jacob Collier had to like fucking learn how music theory works and has to like has to have deeper knowledge than everybody else. Even if you are talented, born with perfect pitch, you still have to study theory. Like things like that. People just aren't willing to recognize that. Yeah. So we're going to talk about that. I think that's really important. How many hours is the studio? I've seen 4 songs be made in 4 hours. I've seen 4 songs be made in 2 hours. I've seen 4 songs take 3 years to make. It's up to you. It's just whatever. I would like, and there's no difference. Some of the 4-hour song, or 1-hour songs sound better than some of the 120-hour songs. So I would like to see an episode how to make high quality music that is good enough. I think we're going to do that right now. Why are some artists chosen to do major label deals? It seems popularity. The guy in the corner office gets a song from their teenage kid, then gives an artist deal. So, yeah, it's mostly about branding. Talent is so disposable, and I hate to say that. Talent is super disposable. And we can touch on that during the episode.
We're not in the days of where you could look like somebody's weird uncle and still get a hit record.
Or unless that's part of your branding.
Yeah, exactly. Like you could be what's the guy? Life goes on and 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 on. Yeah.
Yeah, so in general,
that guy
hold on. We need to
really
start
funny.
recording because we're running out of time and we both have things to do.
Yeah.
But hold on. So to answer that last question, recording, first question, it is worth getting signed still to this day, contrary to popular belief. It is worth getting signed. People get shelved because they suck, not because they're trying to get rid of competitors. That's not a thing. That's a rumor, as far as I understand. They make an album and it doesn't sell as well as people thought they did. So it's like, yeah, getting competitors off the market is like a very old school way of thinking about it. And I don't know if people do that nowadays. It's just not really worth it. There's not enough money in the music industry to do that anymore.
Yeah.
Let's see. It's worth getting signed, number 1. Yes. Now talent is disposable. And what I mean by that is I can throw a rock and hit a talented rapper that's local. I could throw a rock and hit a talented singer that's local.
I'm not gonna
there's
lie,
a lot of talent
that.
everywhere. The difference is not everybody that's talented is able to make a brand. Not everybody that's talented is going to be able to consistently do shows, sell them out, consistently release content, consistently go viral on TikTok, and has the knowledge and the skill and the talent and business to be able to do that sort of things. Because those are not, most of the time it's not accidental. It's like pretty well thought out most of the time. And if you do that, that's when labels start noticing. We could talk about that a little bit. They care more about branding and your ability to
consistency.
Most creatives are not consistent at all. It's a very weird asset to be able to invest in.
You're the danger asset.
There's no drop shipping company that's worried about their Amazon product getting too much money overnight and all of a sudden blowing it all and getting addicted to Coke just because they signed a deal. There's no fear of that in most other industries. But it happens all the time in ours. People have mental breakdowns. People go crazy. People do something to get canceled. It's a very high risk investment that's quite frankly stupid to invest in from an investor standpoint. So we can talk about that. There's a lot of risk, so you want to minimize risk by doing the best of the best, someone that's proven their track record, not by investing in someone it's different. Back in the day with Motown, you'd invest in their growth and you'd raise them. Anyway, does the sound engineer, we're just going to answer these questions and then move on to the next thing. Sorry, we're going to do these quickly. Does the sound engineer matter from DAW to DAW from sound quality? DAWs don't matter, but most professional studios use Pro Tools.
Yeah.
And that's because of a workflow thing. It's an industry standard workflow. For example, engineers use Pro Tools not because Pro Tools is the best or sounds better. It's because every other engineer uses Pro Tools.
Yeah.
That's literally the reason.
Sometimes I'm sent songs in their session to mix. Like I had to mix in Logic, I think a couple weeks ago, literally just because all the files existed in Logic. They couldn't stem them, and when they did try to stem them, they stemmed them wrong. So it was easier to just give me the session files, and that being Pro Tools being the most consistent DAW that most people use in a professional setting, then yeah, Pro Tools is number one just because of consistency in the situation that you're in.
Yeah. You just don't want to be a nuisance. Being a nuisance is the number one killer of careers.
Yeah.
So that means like having an ego. Okay, anyway, we're going to start recording. This is about what does it mean to make quality music. Take one here. Recording the audio. Nickname, Lou.
I had an idea in my head and then it disappeared.
Long throw, Lou.
Long throw, Lou. That sounds... never mind.
Long Lou.
I thought I was going to say for a second that long throat, Lou, and I'm like, God damn.
Hello and welcome back to the Mixing Music Podcast. I'm your host, DK, and with me, as always, is Long Lou. Yeah, whatever that means. We're talking about the length of your room. In the last
I thought we were
episode,
talking about the RTA mics.
Yeah, sure, yeah. Whatever.
Earthworks.
Earthworks. All right.
Yeah, they have two measurement mics, and one just looks like a chub version of the other.
Okay, well, this episode is pretty interesting. It's going to be pretty... We need to get on the same page. You as the listener, us as the
Working
creators.
professionals.
This is something that we were trying to answer questions on the live stream. Shout out to DL on YouTube. That's asking a lot of great questions. And
On the download.
this is something that I think is going to be an interesting topic. It's kind of ambiguous. We're hoping to be able to slash down the ambiguity and kind of come up with solid ideas. But the basic thesis is, what is quality music? Questions like, is the mic and the preamp, that's what's keeping me from doing quality music?
Mhm.
Is learning music theory keeping me from making quality music? What is the difference between those at the top that are doing well and making a really great living off of music and those at the bottom that are not?
I think on a basic level, this is just a super basic thought, but I think it goes back into people's practice, like the time invested in actually doing it versus making one record that's so amazing. Like some people I've met that they'll tell me like, bro, I got like 300 songs like ever since I started. And then I meet other people that are like, yeah, I've got like these 5 songs that are really good. And then you listen to the guy with 300 songs and he's got amazing records because he's gone through the trial and error. He's ran into all the issues, the latency issues, the mic just suddenly dying and whatever, or positioning it better because there's too much echo in one part of the room. Like that person has ran through so many errors that he's probably corrected himself along the way. So maybe the first 100 didn't sound that great, but the last 200 actually started getting gradually better and better to the point where maybe the last 50 records actually were great, amazing quality. But the person that was focused on those 5 songs and never wanted to record unless it was under the perfect situation and circumstances, that could have actually been worse because they waited so long to do something that they never got the practice in.
Yeah, there's a lot of different, again, this is pretty ambiguous and there's not really like a solid foundation we're talking about. Obviously, we're going to talk about experience and practice and how that's going to be the biggest thing, but there's a couple other ideas that I want to point out and some differences that are consistent.
Yeah.
So, by the way, if I say something and it triggers you and you feel like I'm attacking you personally, that is
Too bad. Too bad. Too fucking bad.
That is what Carl Jung describes as your shadow, and it is your secret desires and wishes leaking out from you. You are unable to you're unable to continue to deceive yourself if you get upset by the things that we're saying. That is your ego telling you something about yourself. So, if something does upset you or you disagree with me heavily, this is a great time to look inward and to really take the time to think about whether or not this is affecting you or not.
You should check yourself before you wreck yourself, in the great words of Ice Cube.
Yeah, there you go. So I want to break it down into some like macro ideas, some bigger ideas, and then we'll slowly get more and more specific.
Yeah.
But Lou, let me take the lead on this one here.
Take it.
Is one of the first thing that I want to talk about, which is very empowering. This is very empowering, very important. We talk about this constantly, and I will continue to repeat it because it is the biggest difference between professionals that make a level of living, whether it's high or low or whatever, and those that are unable to figure out how to make a living.
Yeah.
And I'm going to tell you right now, we're going to do an entire episode about this, but how fucking low the bar is. This bar is so fucking low. But the number one between those that are doing well and making a living, shout out to Gilby who just came into the chat.
Oh yeah.
And everybody knows, Lou and I knows, those that are doing well, working with high-level artists, high-level label sessions, getting paid quite a bit, the biggest difference is they never ever ghost, and they always reply to emails on time.
Yep.
They 100% of the time show up to their meetings on time. For example, this is quite often. Most people that are not professionals, hey, let's have a writing session sometime next week, Tuesday, 7 p.m. Tuesday, 6 p.m. rolls by, and then half the group is like, hey, something came up, I can't go.
Yeah.
That is the bar. That's how low the bar is. Like, all you have to do is just show up at 7 p.m. on Tuesday.
Yeah.
And then you're better than already more than half the people. So that's the first thing, is when the level of the project is really high, the first thing is that the professionalism is extremely high, and this is the number one thing that's missing with most people that are working at the top.
Yeah.
That's missing from the people that quite can't figure out why they're not making enough money from it. Is level of professionalism. If you forget to reply to one email, this has happened to almost every producer artist. You work with an engineer and they just ghost you, and then a month later they're like, oh yeah, here's the files, or like they refuse to send you files, or they refuse to fix something for you because it's a hassle for them.
Yeah.
That's how low the bar is.
Yeah.
That's how low the bar is. If you just do that, you're going to do really well. There's other things too, like we're not going to go too much on that because that's a whole nother episode on itself, and something that I'm deeply passionate about that's really empowering. DL, I'm going to speak directly to DL here, who's making some comments. Sorry, I wasn't speaking specifically to you about that. That was a general thing. That wasn't actually meant to be directed to you, those comments. But anyway, number two that what I want to talk about is location real quickly. Location. If you want to be winning Grammys, you're very unlikely to win them outside of California, New York, Tennessee, Nashville. Like, that's just how it is. You gotta move. You gotta move. That's if you want to work at that level, and you don't have to work at that level, but if you're and that level, literally becoming the best at your game and being seen as someone that does high quality work, it's oftentimes branding, which is another thing that we can talk about. But you want to work with other high quality people. They're usually out in these big cities. That's just how it is. Leslie Brathwaite, when we work together, and this is common advice from those that are doing well, is how can I make my mixing, engineering, producing career better? Like, also Atlanta, shout out to Leslie for being from there. Always trying to hype up Atlanta as a valid music industry location. But Leslie Brathwaite, amazing engineer, great person, always talked about, it's like, hey, sometimes it's not the mixing that needs to be better, it's where you're at. It's things that don't matter to the level of your mixing. It's things like where you're living, your professionalism. Those things are keeping you from doing better in the music industry, not how good you are at mixing.
Yeah.
Because honestly speaking, that's another thing too, is like being seen as someone that does high quality work is not necessarily like a skill thing. There's no objectively better mix. There's no objectively better production. It's just that if you have the brand that you continually make high quality stuff, and that's your branding, even if you make something really wacky and weird, like for example, like Metro Boomin doesn't make always the most normal stuff. Sometimes it's out there, man. But people are like, assume that it's high quality just because Metro Boomin make it. Like, that's a branding thing to a certain degree, and obviously it sounds good. People are aware, have taste.
Yeah.
So that's a big part of it too, the branding and being super consistent. So it's all of these like 1% things done over a course of years that builds. Sorry, I'm kind of losing my thought here. I'm going crazy. Pick up where I'm putting down, Lou.
Okay.
But branding and quality is something that is not, you're not building up to it, something that's eventually recognized. I've seen people that have no recognition that are making the most high quality beats, high quality mixes. They're just like the secret engineer that nobody knows about, that's just for some fucking reason just so good.
Yeah.
But they're just not doing well. And I've seen people that are doing really, really well that are less than ideal.
Yeah, so a good example of this is one of my friends, Matt. I met him back in like the Sam Ash days, and like he's actually a graphic designer, I believe. But basically, he does like the animation graphic stuff for video games. Like I think he was working on what was that big one? Not World of Warcraft. It was another competitive one. I think Machi plays it. But essentially, was it Frozen or something like that? The company, I don't know. But point is, you know, he's a video game developer, and his mixes, his productions, everything were insanely good. And yet I was around people who were actually actively trying to work on things, and they just couldn't get it to there. There's going to be outliers. There is, you know, there's going to be people who can outdo each other any point. But the difference between those who are actually doing good, a lot of times, like DK said, is branding. If you wanted to actually be seen as something, you had to present yourself as something. You had to be consistent in that something. You know, if you want to be a mastering engineer, you got to stop promoting mixing. You can still do it, but if you want to be taken seriously as a mastering engineer, you got to stop mixing, or at least stop publicly mixing. You can still mix songs here and there, you know, to take care of your clients, you know, make your money. If DK wants to be taken seriously as a mixing engineer, it's not that he has to stop mastering. He can still offer it, but he's probably offering it on the phone call or in the conversation, not online.
Yeah,
Your public image is the difference between what you are and what people think you are.
This is so important. That's a whole nother topic we've brought up, and we haven't brought up in a while. But like, if you want to be a mix engineer, you need to stop tracking.
I'll give you a good example of this. Here's two that I got hit with in the last couple of years. When I started promoting only mastering, it's because of a scaling issue in my business. I couldn't be working on so many mixes with as much time as I need per mix versus as much as I need per master, while also running like my studio design company and everything, because I've been getting really busy with that to the point where I'm like, instead of battling deadlines, I need to reevaluate what it is I want to do. And I actually really like mastering. So I went to mastering, but a lot of people started saying, oh, so you don't mix anymore? Like, I can't book you for mixing anymore? I'm like, you still can, but my focus is to shift into exclusively mastering. So you can still do everything if you want. You can still be a jack of all trades if you want, but your brand is the biggest reason that people are booking you, especially people that don't know you, because you build a brand and they look at your brand and they say, well, this person has X amount of people that they've worked with. There's a playlist with hundreds of songs on it. They have a YouTube channel showing tutorials, so I can actually trust what's going on and what's in front of me. You know what? Let me give this guy a shot. Let me give him a ring. Let me email him and see what this is about. But if you're the person that just has really, really good quality product, but your branding sucks, you're bound to get booked less than the person with consistency, even if that product isn't as good. There's going to be, if you look at your market, a good idea whenever you start a business is to research your market, right? You look at the competitors, you see what they're doing, and you try to see if you can match, if not do better. And you try to figure out also, if their brand technically has a lower or inferior product, why are they so successful? You know, and it's usually branding. Like, look at, I'm not saying that KRK is bad. If you have KRK and you like it, whatever, you like it, but I don't like KRK. And that might bite me in the butt in the future, but so be it. But anytime I see KRKs, I kind of have an opinion already built. You know, it's like the egg foam crates and stuff like that.
You're talking about branding and how branding can affect. Okay.
Exactly. So like some people will buy a set of speakers because they know it's the popular speaker and all the new people use it. Some people buy a speaker because they want to make sure that it translates with the current trends that are moving. So like the PMC 6.2s have been very popular in the last year. And a lot of people have them. I know people who have bought them because they're like, well, that's what everybody's using. And I know what people who have bought it that they just want to keep consistency. PMC's branding and their marketing has been so good that they're just getting bought out, even if you believe that the speaker is better or not. I know people who buy it not because they believe it's better, but because they want consistency when they're translating their mixes to their client speakers.
Yeah. I'm gonna switch the topic a little bit into. So we talked about branding. We talked about just regular business ethics and business practices. We talked about self-improvement and professionalism.
Yeah.
Going back to the original thesis of what is quality music, I want to briefly speak on the delusion of looking at music in retrospect.
Yeah.
For example, we analyze classical music. Mozart. Why was Mozart so genius? Why, and even to modern music, why did this Katy Perry song hit so hard?
Yeah.
Like, in retrospect, things that people did seem so obvious. Okay, Bruno Mars went from this key to this key, and he made the chorus do this, and he used this sort of turnaround. That's why it popped off. That is the least courageous way to figure out. This is something that bothers me about that. It's like, yes, in retrospect, of course, we can put, sew some line of logic.
Yeah.
Thread the line of logic through it, right? But when you're in the moment creating a song, you have no fucking clue what makes it pop off. If there was some sort of algorithm, like for example, it used to be very popular to talk about song structure. The more choruses you have, you have to have a first verse, chorus, second verse, chorus, bridge, chorus. Maybe fade outs do better than if you have a repeating phrase that fades out, it's going to be more hooky, and people want to, that was very popular for a while. In retrospect, it's really easy to determine what made something pop off, what made something perform so well, what makes it high quality.
Yeah.
But in the moment, what is high quality? Nobody has a fucking clue. What is a hot pop song or a hit song? Nobody has a fucking clue. And let me prove it to you simply. If the labels had a specific algorithm to make sure songs will pop off. If you do this song is going to pop off. If you do it, it's going to do well. They wouldn't have to invest so much fucking money
in trying new artists.
In trying new artists, in trying new songs that go nowhere.
In fact, they'd probably have a roster of 10 artists and that's it.
There you go. You don't have to invest in any other artists. You just have the same 10 artists make the same songs that will theoretically do well. But the thing is, that is not a thing.
Yeah.
When it comes to art...
How many times have we talked to engineers who, like, they recently got big, they just had a hit record, and it's like, so what do you think was different? It's like, the record did well. The luck came in on that one. And I didn't do anything different. It's just that this record seemingly did better than others.
And here's the thing too, like there's lots of moments even in engineering where this happens.
Yeah.
It happens on accident. For example, who's the guy? Doom 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 doom.
Oh,
Tarzan.
Yeah.
Tarzan music. What's his name? Anyway, you know what I'm talking about.
I know who you're talking about.
Off the top of my head. Sun in the air tonight. Okay, anyway. That sound of the hyper crushed toms going Phil Collins. Thank you, Gilby. Okay, Phil Collins, that song, that was totally on accident. They had patched in the talkback mic through the SSL conscious, which is hyper compressed, and they accidentally recorded that hyper compressed sound, and that's why it's very roomy and it sounds like that. That was on accident, and that became a very hit sensation. Even something like a gated reverb was on accident. That was this is another thing too. People are obsessed with the microphones that the Beatles used in recording at Abbey Road. They're like, why did they use this mic? This is now a legendary mic.
This is the 44. You have to have a 44.
Yeah, and or even like just some shitty dynamic mic. And they asked the engineer, why did you use this mic? This is now a legendary mic. The value skyrocketed 10 times because the world now knows that this is one of the secret mics you use that nobody knows about. Why did you use this mic? And the genuine, honest-to-goodness answer from the engineer was because it was already plugged in and already on a stand.
Yeah.
That was the answer.
Yep.
So it's like, in retrospect, we kind of thread this line of logic. This is the reason why it's a high-quality song. It was this theory. It was this movement. It was this sort of...
Yeah.
It's not.
Like,
it's
no
not
joke.
that.
Like, I remember I was working out of Record Plant on an album, and we basically wanted to plug in through just whatever gear they had there that sounded right for the moment. And I was like, you know what? I don't really care about using a Neve, so we'll just run the vocals through the SSL because it's already on the channel. As far as compressor, they had 1176s, LA2As, and a couple other things. running through each one of them, I could hear that all of them are distorting. So I just went with a distressor, the only thing that didn't sound like it was distorting. And they're like, oh man, yeah. So like, what you using? You using the Tube Tech? You using the LA2A? I'm like, nope, just the distressor and the SSL. They're like, you got all this and this is all you're using? I'm like, it's the only thing that worked. That's it. Sometimes records were cut on certain items because it was the only thing that worked.
There you go.
Not every studio, like I promise.
That didn't need repair.
Yeah,
Like-
yeah. Some of these studios that you're in LA paying $2,000-$3,000 for, I hate to tell you, but I've been in some pretty shitty, expensive rooms.
There you go. Okay, so the next thing that we're gonna go into now. So we talked about luck as well. The only thing that I'm gonna talk about real briefly, putting a cap on that, is that there are some things that trends that do statistically help.
Yeah.
For example, like right now the trend is shorter songs, and the reason for that is because it forces people to repeat more, and the more repeats and the more plays you get, the more the algorithm boosts the song.
Yeah.
The more money you make because you get a lot more streams, things of that nature. There are like some things at various different times which people have theories on, but those things kind of like help you focus your gamble. Like it's still gambling, but you're kind of like, putting them in different buckets that are based on what other people are thinking and saying. So it's still gambling, but even at super high levels, it's crazy at labels. Even we had an episode where I interviewed the marketing director at Position Music, and basically they're all even professionals are gambling the same exact way as every independent artist. It's the same gambles. It's just gambling at scale. Yeah. That's all it is. They're just posting way more TikToks. They're just posting way more Instagram reels. They're just posting way more content. And they are working with higher quality content creators that are focused on starting off with a hook and saying these specific words and generalizing and fan baiting, and there's these different techniques.
If you have an intro, feed some of the chorus lyrics as a filtered vocal at the beginning of the song.
Yeah. So there's like some things that like that's not what makes a quality song, or that's not what makes the song successful.
It gives it a vibe. It gives it an era almost.
So that's what it is. And then, there's some songs that do really, really well that kind of suck. And some songs that don't, a lot of songs that sound fucking so good from a creative production or even like engineering level, but get 12 plays. It's insane. So it's gambling. It's high level gambling. That's all what people do. Okay, so again, going back to what makes a high quality song versus a low quality song, it's not a tone, it's not a threshold. It is something that is determined in retrospect. I feel like that's what it is. I think that's the answer to the thesis. Like it's not something that you need to do. It's not a piece of equipment that you need to have. It is something that is determined in retrospect after the song is done. Yeah. Was this a high quality song? Because when you're in the moment, even professionals have no fucking idea. The last thing that I want to talk about to kind of push it past the threshold here is we cannot negate experience.
Yeah.
You cannot negate experience. I will say that professionalism, most likely, it is a decision that you have to make, but that decision, you don't come to the point where you have to decide whether or not you're going to be the type of person that is going to be super professional unless you've been putting in the work. You realize that I'm willing to eat shit for this. I'm willing to do more for this. It's through experience that you double down on how professional you're going to be and how you see how much value it is to A&Rs and managers when you reply to emails, to artists when you actually reply consistently. Like you see how much they love it and how much they're willing to pay for it. And then slowly with experience, you start doubling down on those things. You start doubling down on ideas and like chorus maybe and things that have worked for you in the past. Maybe you like to write songs in a specific way that nobody else is doing, but you like the way it sounds and you double down on that.
Yeah.
Right? Through experience. Experience is the last thing. It's not some sort of threshold that we get to. It is through experience, I think that you find it and you determine and you allow everybody else to determine that this is high quality. Because even when Billie Eilish released her album, not this last album, but the one before, like her first album, technically you can argue that it sounds like shit because it was really distorted, it was dark, it was moody.
Yeah.
From an engineer's perspective, it's not Katy Perry, it's not Charlie Puth pop.
Yeah.
Like, so it's low quality from an up till that point, like how we understood music up
like
to that point.
No auto-tune.
Yeah, and then it comes out and it's a huge success and people relate to it emotionally, and then that's now considered high quality. That was a really high quality record. You know, when it was done in a way that doesn't sound necessarily good.
I'll say it like this. A good example for me would be the Scorpion album by Drake. I think it sounds like shit. But yet every client for that year that was doing music in that realm was like, I want it to sound like Scorpion. So
Trends are made, yeah.
Yeah. So even if it didn't sound high quality, it could be high quality to somebody else, but depending on your demographic. So high quality cannot be determined specifically on one person's taste.
Yeah. So again, high quality is determined only in retrospect, but it's like, but it's also this thing like through experience, you become hyper confident in your sound and your taste, and you do something that you like, and you find out that other people like it too.
Yeah.
Even if it's up until that point understood as technically incorrect then, and then you find out that that's what made it beautiful later. It's this interesting thing. The point is, with music, it is a form of art. It is not a subjective thing. It is, or it's not an objective thing. It is a very subjective thing. There's a reason why really heavily distorted TikTok music, which literally I'm getting paid so much money to work with some of these artists, that like all it is just distorted drum and bass fast kind of stuff, and people eat that shit up because it's just punk rock, man.
Yeah.
It's punk rock in the sense that it doesn't take a ton of music theory. It doesn't take a lot of understanding music. It's just very emotionally, it connects with the younger audience. It connects with people, and that's what makes it high quality. It's not high quality technically, but it's doing better than Mozart on vinyl. You know, like it's what is high quality? It's super, this concept is super interesting. I think that if you think of it as a threshold, that if you do this well, then all of a sudden you learn how to do high quality. There's a difference between, if you're a producer and you're like, the difference between Metro Boomin and I is something. That something doesn't exist is the point that we're trying to make.
Yeah.
It's more of like, it's just a path that you take and you find yourself on, and then all of a sudden you realize, oh shit, I'm doing good. And there's others times where it's like you find that you don't have that much experience, but something you do goes viral, and then all of a sudden you're competing with Metro Boomin, you know, or like another producer, just because you had a few viral songs, but you have significantly less experience than other people that are doing just as well. There's a lot of variables, and there's no solid thing, but I want to be clear, like, I'm a big fan of this with the podcast. You'll notice is that I'm all about empowering people to try their best and to continue to work at it. And what I'm not trying to do is to scare people. What I'm trying to do is make you feel empowered, that to a certain degree, I want you to accept and understand that us two, none of us know what the fuck is going on.
Yeah.
You can take this to an existential level if you want to. But the fact is, all of us, including Beyonce, we're just pretending that we know what the fuck is happening. Nobody knows what the fuck is happening. And that is an uncomfortable truth that our egos cannot handle, because our egos wants to tell us that the reason why I'm not like Beyonce is because Beyonce has resources that I do not have, or has some sort of secret Illuminati knowledge that I don't have. I'm here to tell you, there is none of that. And
there might be a marketing budget.
Of course, but but Beyonce didn't get one just because, she earned a marketing budget.
Yeah.
She got there. There was people that believed in her.
Yeah.
And she's just been doing it for decades.
Some of the people that I found wanting to work with, literally from going to mixers. Like, literally, you want the connections, you want to spread the word about your music, go out there. Get out there.
And you know what's crazy is, and this is the most empowering thing, going to mixers, networking, working on music every single day, trying to get better, whatever the fuck that means, doing research, fucking, dude, reading books. Like here, I'm gonna tell you right now, reading books at the library, borrowing books, gaining knowledge through reading, most people aren't willing to. It's fucking free. Most people aren't willing to do it. And exercise is free, but most people aren't willing to do it. The difference between those that are doing well, making high quality stuff in retrospect, and those that are doing really poorly It is the things that are free just done at scale. It is gambling done at scale. I literally talked to a former engineer of Lil Wayne. Lil Wayne is super efficient with his time.
Yeah.
Super efficient. It's kind of unhealthy, he says. The high performers are not doing anything different than the low performers. They're just doing it at scale. They're working on the 1% at a time to like sleep schedules, morning routines, impulse control, practice, and being hyper consistent. Those that are high performing don't have time to say, I don't feel like making beats today. That's not even a concept that they understand. And that's not something that's like, that's not a physical thing that's keeping you from being at that level. That's just a decision that they've made, potentially coming from some level of trauma and never being able to feel like they're enough, whether it's from their parents, whatever.
Yeah.
A deep level of insecurity can create high performers, right? But Lou, sorry, I'm trying to. I have a hard time putting a lid on this.
Okay.
Please try to make a conclusion with this this cloudy thought that I'm having.
Okay. Honestly speaking, just be the artist that you actually, or work with the artist to become their own unique product. Because the reality is, if nobody knows what the fuck they're doing, tell me one song where every feature sounded like the same fucking person. If everybody wanted to feature with Drake because they have that sound, then if everybody sounded like Drake, then there would be no reason for anybody else but Drake. Honestly speaking, just keep pushing, just release the music. And honestly speaking, if you want to get better as an engineer, what makes high quality mixes as an engineer, just send them to the artist and get your revision notes. They'll let you know what they specifically want, and watch what happens when you send those same tracks to one of your engineering buddies. They're going to give you a whole different set of notes. You're never going to get that one mix or that one artist that sounds perfect and great. You just got to keep pushing through it. And that's why the whole notion of like the artist with 300 tracks versus the artist with 5 songs that they're really passionate about is so important. Because if nobody knows what the fuck they're doing, then at a certain point you just need to put it out there. Turn in your work on time with deadlines. Turn it in a week early so you have some wiggle room for revisions if you need them. But at the end of the day, if nobody knows what the fuck they're doing and everybody is on the same platform, then I hate to tell you, just put it out, see what happens. Let your fear become the thing that you're really pushing against. Let that fear fuel what you're doing. But honestly speaking, when I quit my 9-to-5 to focus on this, I wasn't thinking if I had the highest quality. I was thinking if I can consistently find work.
Amen. Yeah, that's the I think at the end of the day, those that are high performers that make high quality music truly, genuinely learn to love the work.
Yeah.
Love the work. Not the end results, but the process.
Yeah, the end results will, every year I feel like I have a new best mix, new best master. Like the records that Bob sent me to master this weekend, he went from sending me tracks that he mixed and whatever through Echo Bar, and then now he's doing them from home. You would assume that a lot of people are like, man, I don't have this multi-million-dollar facility, blah, 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 anymore. My quality of record is going to change and this and that. No, he's still very fucking good. He himself has found a consistency through how much work he's doing consistently. He has found a method that works best for him, but that method may not work for everybody. Some people cannot mix in their living room and stuff like that after having just come out of a major studio. And because of that, he's still getting what everybody would call a high quality product out there. But it's because he found what works for him through consistency.
And that is the wrap. What makes a high quality song? It's the amount of work that you put in before you made that song.
Yeah.
It's the consistency that you did. So this is one thing that it's true. The higher up you go, like wanting to do it for a Grammy, wanting to do high quality songs to be recognized, that only goes so far. What happens once you reach that goal? You get to the finish line. You get recognition. Now you don't need it anymore.
Yeah.
Because you've already been recognized. Do you stop making music? Dr. Dre could have stopped a long time ago.
Yeah.
We'll even go as far as to say, like,
he didn't need to do the Super Bowl. He still would have been just as popular.
Yeah, if Jeff Bezos was doing it for the money, he would have stopped a decade ago.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Have you seen the website Spend Jeff Bezos Money?
Yeah.
Yeah. Like
So-
you could still buy the entire NFL and still have more money than anybody else in the world.
So I mean, this is the thing. Like, I'm trying to be really serious about this. It's you have, if you want to do well, and if you want to find balance and get to a point where you can start consistently make high quality, build a brand, do like, in order to have the motivation to become more professional, you have to learn how to love the work, not the end results. You have to learn that the end results are ambiguous, that they're completely out of your control, no matter how much practice and experience you have. You have to recognize that.
Yeah.
You have to enjoy the work, the process, and I wouldn't even say just trust it. You don't even need to trust it. Just enjoy it.
Yeah.
And if you are wanting a book to read that can help you focus in on that and the importance of that, a book that I really like, it's simple, it's an easy read, like one-page chapters, tons of gems, a shit ton of gems, is The Practice by Seth Godin. It's a blue book. It's great. It's just gems on gems. And it's so heavily saturated with gems that's what makes it difficult to read, is because you're reading it and it's like, there's no fucking way that I'll remember all of this.
Yeah.
You feel bad. You're like, I'm not gonna, like, that's the only difficult thing.
I don't know
It's
if I
just so
told you,
good.
like, I'm on my second round of The Go-Giver.
Oh, dude, I've read that book at least 2 or 3 times.
Yeah, I'm on my
it's
second round now.
Nice.
Yeah.
It's that's an important book. But again, this is something that I always recommend, like, outside, kind of unrelated to this. If you want to see how much you want something, you should be able to, like, you want something if you're willing to read books for that thing. Like, I think that reading books sucks. Reading sucks. That's the vast majority. Most people don't read, but if you're willing to go out of your way to read a fucking book here and there, to read, that is not, it's the second best thing to a mentor, first off. Like, edited pure knowledge edited down to a book is it's so unfathomably valuable. Okay, it's the second best thing to a straight up mentor. Okay, on top of that, it's a great way to determine how much you want something. If you aren't willing to read books, aren't willing to grow your education, knowing that it sucks for everybody, nobody enjoys that much. If you can't learn how to enjoy it, if you aren't willing to put up with it, then that's probably like the baseline. That's probably the baseline. And I will say, you'd be surprised how many people that are doing well read books or think about these sort of things. And
Yeah.
it's there's a lot of secret hidden knowledge in books. That's all I'm going to say. That's all I'm going to say. I want you to assume and allude to many different things. There's a lot of
Allude.
secret knowledge that is openly available, that is hidden under openly available books in the public library. And the difference between someone wealthy and someone not is not something that cannot be found in a book.
Yeah.
It can be found in books. That's all I'm going to say. All right. I hope that this episode was empowering. I hope it kind of gave you an idea of what is high quality music. I hope that this podcast helps you to continually find the motivation to continue to be consistent, to work on your consistency, to work on your professionalism, to take steps towards a professional career. And as always, we're a resource. We're on Discord. You can always ask questions on our Discord, mixingmusicpodcast.com/Discord. Just go to mixingmusicpodcast.com. And if you want more technical tips, like how to use microphones, how to use different EQs, things like that, go to mixingmusicpodcast.com/exclusive, where James and I do technical episodes twice a week, every single week. And it should double the catalog. And those episodes, the exclusive episodes, are ad-free. So go check those out. And on that note, Lou, do you want to say anything as we close out?
Yeah, stop being a bitch and just put it out.
There we go. Love that. Love that aggression. All right. On that note, happy mixing, my friends, and stay saucy.
Like, that's one way to say it.
Yeah, I'm like I think that was a really good episode, but I'm still very unsatisfied.
It's because it goes into a lot more than just
It's
a
very
30-minute
ambiguous.
conversation.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's very ambiguous.
Yeah, because like for instance, like this question from DL, who's the better producer, Dr. Dre, Daz, or DJ Quick? They're all completely different. There's no way you can
Yeah, and
quantify
better is subjective.
like there's no quantifiable number value that you can give any of them to say that one is clearly better. Like DJ Quick and Dr. Dre have worked on songs together.
Yeah,
So
are we determining better based on just number of
yeah,
streams,
because
number of
if it came
albums
down to
sold?
taste, like Dr. Dre has a lot of America in his fingertips, so DJ Quick really just has the West Coast. Daz, uh, I would say has less of a grab than DJ Quick fans.
But like what? But by
You
what
know,
metric?
but what metric? Like if
There's
we're
too many
talking
variables.
popularity, then Dr. Dre unfortunately wins. DJ
Unfortunately.
Quick, I would say unfortunately, just because it's like
Yeah,
it's
ones
the
are
clear
underrated.
contender. It's the
Yeah.
clear contender. Like if we were going strictly on branding, DJ Quick nor Daz has ever been invited out as a producer
What
to
metric?
perform at Super Bowl. But Dr. Dre was able to bring out everybody that he's produced for to the Super Bowl because he didn't have to perform. He performs for like what, 5 minutes of the whole thing?
I came into Lou saying stop being a bitch. That's true. That is true.
Yeah,
that is
Linhart.
that is one of the that is one of the that sounded like oddly Linhart is like the nicest person
I know, yeah.
every single time. Anyway,
Like,
it was like
saying,
oddly
"Stop being a bitch."
accusatory. It sounded like but anyway, no, that is like something that is a theme in our podcast is to but in an empowering way.
Yeah, it's like you're really in control of it.
You are in control of
You're in control of it as much as you can be. There's certain things that are going to be out of your reach and out of your control, at least for now. It's like saying like I want to one day win a Grammy. Okay, you know how you fucking do that? Keep putting out music. One of them is bound to get some level of recognition or be in the hands of a specific team that may have a better ability to make that a possibility. But right now, as it stands, if you're just putting out songs and throwing them on Spotify with no marketing plan, no connections, no circles that you're working around, there's much less of a chance.
We didn't even
But
talk
even
about that.
even if you're at the Grammys, you're a voting member and everything. There's still so many people per year submitting songs for consideration. Then the ones that do get considered and get the nominations of those, there's so many people involved in those records that you're really still not in control of who's going to win or not. And there's going to be the politics behind it. Sure, I get it. But at the end of the fucking day, the only way you're really ever going to win one is if you continually try to submit those songs into the Grammy realm and work with people who are in that realm. You have better odds at it, but there's still no guarantee. Like there is no one way of winning in this industry. So stop being a bitch and put it out.
Yeah, there's the one thing that we didn't really talk about, reflect on is there's nepotism. We didn't talk about nepotism and like knowing the right people. The cool thing about the bad thing about knowing the right people don't realize this. It doesn't matter. It matters more what type of person you are when you meet the right people. I feel like most people have met or will meet the right people eventually. There's nobody on this planet that doesn't get a chance to meet the right people in the right time. But I would say most people, a majority of people, they themselves aren't ready for it. For example, it's the missed opportunities. You finally get one shot to work with somebody, but you didn't reply to that email on time. You didn't have the skill good enough where you could, or you didn't know your DAW well enough to be able to make a beat fast enough. They just don't hire you again. And now it's just a lost opportunity. I think most of the time it's a lot of that too. So being in the right place, right time is important, but you have to be professional. You have to have those things that we talked about earlier in that episode.
Like, honestly, I do think that, like, when I first got the call to work with Keisha, it had nothing to do with the person that connected me the first or second time. But the first person that wanted me to work with her, like, told me, he's like, yeah, the session has to happen today, this and that. So it came down to, like, availability, right? But I was at work. I was still working my 9 to 5. But the cool thing is that, like, I managed to get out of work by faking really bad diarrhea and stomach aches. That's cool because, like, how many people can say that, like, yeah, I left my job faking a sickness in order to get this session. And the sad part is the session canceled. That's something that was out of my control. What was in my control is what I was willing to do once the opportunity was in front of me. But when the opportunity did come in front of me, I was actually a little bit more prepared because it was about a year later. And I killed it, obviously, because we ended up working together for years. But it became one of those things like once I was actually like capable of being part of these sessions, people recognized that and were inviting me out to be part of these sessions. But you have to be out there and networking for that to be the thing. So once again, it goes back to like, you want to be high quality, you want consistency, you want success. You can't just stay in your fucking room.
Yeah. All right, I think that's it. Lou and I have work to do. Are you going straight back home? You're like an hour away now.
I am.
Oh, next week, I don't know if we'll be able to live stream it, but next week we have a sponsored episode with Sony, and we're gonna be making and releasing a binaural episode.
Yeah.
So there's gonna be an episode where we're gonna release that you're gonna want to listen on headphones because we're gonna
Trip you the fuck out.
yeah, we're gonna be really trippy. We're gonna be really goofy with the mic and just like fart from the back of the room, and you're gonna hear us, or like put some scissors behind the mics. We're gonna do some binaural episodes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yusufina, I
think it'd be
just
fun.
noticed the question. I don't know when you put that about how much I'm charging. Just
Assuming
hit me up on
4.
hit me up on Instagram at Mastered by Lou. We can talk about it there to start, but every situation's different. So I there's no way for me to quote you based off of like a general idea. You just got to let me know what you need and we can talk. But yeah, dude, like honestly speaking, I'm really excited to hear what we're going to sound like binaurally, because if that's the case, I almost want to make weird ass sounds and just see what happens.
Yep.
Yeah.
Alrighty. On that note, happy mixing, my friends. Stay saucy. I appreciate y'all. I think we're just gonna end the stream. Yeah, sorry, the background music isn't working, so we're just gonna end. Unless there's any other questions.
You want to do like an intense stare at the camera while it ends?
Slow fade as we stare at the camera.